Sold to the Ruthless Mafia boss, he hated me until. The pen shakes in my fingers as I stare at the contract on Dylan Puckett's desk. His voice is calm, final, telling me 2 years as his wife will erase my father's debt. My heart beats too fast to hide. I can feel his eyes on me, cold and sharp, watching every breath I take. He stands near the windows, tall and hard, tattoos dark against his skin. This office above the velvet room feels like a cage. I want to speak, to fight, yet the image of my father in a hospital bed crushes every thought. Dylan owns this moment. He knows I have no escape. My coat is thin, my hands are empty, and the future waits inside a single signature. When I look up, his face shows no mercy, only control. I realize he does not see me as a woman, only as a solution to a problem. I lower the pen to the paper, unaware that this choice will break his rules, test his hate, and pull us into a bond neither of us planned. Welcome to DEE'S Romance Stories, where forbidden love ignites, dangerous hearts collide, and desire defies every rule. Stay with me, because you'll witness a story that will make your heart race and your imagination burn. Don't just watch, feel it. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and let yourself be swept into a world where every choice could change everything. Sheila Bennett did not wake up one day and decide to give her life to a man like Dylan Puckett. The choice was forced on her long before she ever sat in his office. It began the night her father's business failed. Gerald Bennett had owned a small logistics company on the west side of Chicago for 20 years. It was never large, but it paid the bills, sent Sheila through community college, and gave them a quiet sense of pride. When fuel prices rose and contracts dried up, Gerald borrowed money to keep the trucks moving. He did not tell Sheila how much he owed, or who he owed it to. He only smiled and said things would get better. They did not. 3 months later, Gerald collapsed in their kitchen. Sheila found him on the floor when she came home from her shift, his body heavy and still, his eyes open but unseeing. The ambulance lights filled the hallway as neighbors watched in silence. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, a doctor told her her father had suffered a severe stroke. He would live, but he might never walk again. His speech would take time. Recovery would be long and costly. Sheila signed papers she barely understood. Bills began arriving within days. That was when she learned the truth. A man in a dark coat approached her outside the hospital cafeteria. He spoke calmly and used her full name. He told her her father owed $500,000. He said the debt belonged to Dylan Puckett. She had heard the name before. Everyone in Chicago had. Dylan Puckett owned nightclubs, trucking companies, construction firms. He sponsored charity events and appeared in business magazines. He was also a man people lowered their voices around. Sheila laughed at first. It sounded unreal. Then the man handed her copies of documents with her father's signature. $500,000. She worked mornings at a Navy Pier diner and nights at a grocery warehouse. Even if she worked forever, it would not be enough. The man told her Dylan did not enjoy pressure. He suggested she come talk to him. A week later, after a 14-hour shift, Two men waited outside the diner. They did not touch her. They did not threaten her. They opened the car door and said Mr. Puckett was expecting her. The velvet room glowed above River North like another world. Music pulsed below while she was led upstairs, away from the noise. Dylan's office was quiet, clean, controlled. He listened while she spoke, her voice shaking as she begged for time she did not have. Dylan did not interrupt her. When she finished, he told her the truth with no softness at all. He needed a wife. Not love. Not affection. A legal marriage. 2 years. He was expanding his legitimate businesses and needed stability in the public eye. Investors wanted a man with a home, not a reputation. In return, her father's debt would be erased. His medical care would be paid in full. Private doctors. Private rooms. The best rehabilitation money could buy. Sheila asked if there was another option. Dylan told her no. The contract was thick. Lawyers had written every line. It outlined duties, appearances, limits. No intimacy was required. Separate bedrooms. Privacy clauses. Silence clauses. A clean exit after 2 years. Sheila read every page while Dylan stood by the window, waiting. She thought of her father struggling to lift a hand. She thought of the bills stacked on her kitchen table. She signed. 2 days later, they were married at the courthouse. There were 2 witnesses she did not know. Dylan wore a dark suit. Sheila wore a borrowed coat and shoes that pinched her feet. The judge read the vows without emotion. When asked if she accepted, Sheila answered yes in a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone else. Dylan slid the ring onto her finger. It was plain gold. Heavy. That was it. No kiss. No smile. No celebration. By nightfall, she was standing inside a penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, glass walls revealing the lake and the city lights beyond. The space was larger than her entire apartment building. A housekeeper showed her to a bedroom at the far end of the hall. "This is yours," the woman said kindly. "Mr. Puckett's room is down there." Separate lives, just as promised. The next morning, Dylan left before sunrise. He did not knock on her door. He did not check on her. Sheila wandered the penthouse alone, touching furniture she was afraid to sit on. The refrigerator was full. The closets held clothes in her size she had not chosen. That afternoon, she received a call from the hospital. Her father was being transferred to a private facility in Evanston. Everything had been approved. No payment required. She took the train north with tears she could not stop. The new place was quiet and bright. Gerald had his own room. A team of specialists greeted her by name. They spoke about progress and plans. Her father squeezed her hand with weak fingers and tried to smile. "You married well," he whispered. Sheila smiled back and said nothing. Days turned into weeks. She learned Dylan's routine without trying. He left early. He came home late. Sometimes he did not come home at all. When he did, the penthouse felt colder, even with the heat on. They passed each other in hallways like strangers sharing a hotel. Lawyers handled paperwork. Assistants handled schedules. Money moved without her seeing it. Once, she saw Dylan in the kitchen late at night, pouring a glass of water. He nodded at her. She nodded back. No words were spoken. At the end of the first month, a car arrived to take her to Evanston. Gerald was improving. He could lift his arm now. His speech was clearer. He talked about the future like it was something waiting for him again. Sheila sat by his bed, holding his hand, telling him about her new home, her caring husband, the view of the lake. Each lie tasted bitter, but it kept him smiling. When she returned to the penthouse that evening, Dylan was waiting in the living room. A folder lay on the table between them. "We have our first appearance," he said. Sheila nodded, knowing this was the life she had agreed to. And as she walked past him toward her room, she felt the weight of the ring on her finger, and understood that the contract had not only changed her future. It had sealed her inside his world. The first month of marriage feels nothing like a beginning. It feels like a pause. Dylan leaves the penthouse before sunrise most days. Sheila hears the distant click of the front door from her bedroom, then silence. By the time she returns from Evanston in the evening, the lights are often off again. When he does come home, it is late, his footsteps quiet, his presence distant. They exchange short greetings that carry no warmth and no anger, just space. They live like careful strangers sharing a large, expensive shell. Sheila settles into a routine she never imagined. Every morning, she takes the train north to see her father. Gerald's progress is slow but steady. He can sit up now. His words come easier. Each improvement fills her with relief and guilt in equal measure. "You look happy," Gerald tells her one afternoon. "Marriage suits you." She smiles and talks about Dylan in soft, glowing terms. She describes him as busy but thoughtful, serious but kind. Gerald listens with pride, squeezing her hand when his strength allows. Sheila leaves each visit feeling like she has borrowed happiness she does not own. Back at the penthouse, the rules are clear. Dylan lays them out one evening without emotion. Stay out of his office. Do not ask questions about his work. Do not bring people into the home. Appear together only when required. Public respect is essential. Private distance is expected. Sheila agrees to all of it. She has already agreed to worse. At night, she lies awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how easily she signed herself away. She tells herself she did it for love, for loyalty, for survival. Still, the word echoes in her mind. Sold. Even with reasons that make sense, the truth stings. The first required appearance comes sooner than she expects. A black garment bag waits on her bed when she returns from Evanston one evening. Inside is a gown the color of deep green glass. It is elegant and simple, nothing loud, nothing cheap. When she tries it on, it fits perfectly, as if it was made for her body alone. A note rests in the pocket. No signature. Just a time and a location. The Art Institute of Chicago glows under soft lights the night of the gala. Cameras flash as guests arrive. Sheila's hand rests lightly on Dylan's arm, her fingers tense. The moment they step inside, he changes. His hand settles at her back. His voice lowers. He leans close to her ear, asking if she is comfortable. He smiles at donors, laughs at comments, introduces her with pride. To anyone watching, they look like a strong, devoted couple. She struggles to keep up with the performance. Dylan listens when she speaks, guiding her through conversations, never leaving her side. His attention feels real enough to confuse her. During the dance, the room fades around them. The music is slow. His hand is warm against hers. Sheila finally looks up at him, truly looks. "Is this who you pretend to be?" she asks quietly. "A man who cares." Dylan's smile does not falter for the crowd, but his eyes sharpen. "This is who I need to be. For them," she says. "Not for me." His grip tightens just enough to be felt. "Careful. Why bother pretending to be human?" she asks, her voice low but steady. The words land harder than she expects. Dylan guides her across the floor with practiced ease, his face calm. "You stand there judging me," he says softly, "while wearing my name, my ring, and my money." Her breath catches. "I never said I was better than you." "You don't have to," he replies. "You look at me like I'm something you stepped in by mistake." She swallows. "You made this a deal. And you accepted," he says. "Don't forget that." The music ends. Applause fills the room. Dylan releases her hand and thanks the hosts with flawless grace. The rest of the evening passes in polite conversation and forced smiles. The ride home is quiet. Chicago passes outside the windows, lights blurring as the car moves along the lake. Sheila watches her reflection in the glass, the emerald fabric glowing faintly. "I didn't mean to insult you," she says at last. Dylan keeps his eyes forward. "Yes, you did." She exhales slowly. "I meant that it must be exhausting." He turns to her then, really looks at her. Something unreadable passes through his expression. "You have no idea." They say nothing more. Back at the penthouse, Dylan removes his jacket and sets it aside. Sheila slips out of the gown, folding it carefully. When she steps into the hallway, they pause, standing several feet apart. "Good night," she says. "Good night," he replies. She closes her door and leans against it, her heart racing. That night, she dreams of him reaching for her hand without an audience watching. The next morning, she wakes before dawn. The penthouse is quiet. As she pours herself coffee, she hears footsteps. Dylan enters the kitchen, hair slightly undone, shirt open at the collar. They stand there, unsure. "You handled yourself well," he says. She nods. "You did too." A pause stretches between them. It is not comfortable, but it is not empty either. Sheila realizes something has changed. Not trust. Not affection. Something smaller, sharper. Honesty. They have seen each other without the masks, even for a moment. And that knowledge follows her all the way back to Evanston, where her father smiles at her and asks when her husband will visit. For the first time, she does not know how to answer. Late nights in the penthouse stop feeling accidental. Sheila begins making tea after her visits to Evanston, something warm to settle her nerves before sleep. The kitchen lights stay low. The city glows beyond the glass. At first, she is alone. Then, without comment, Dylan starts appearing at the counter across from her. He never asks for tea. He just sits. Some nights he checks his phone. Other nights he stares out at the lake. Sheila pours hot water, waits for the steam to rise, listens to the quiet hum of the refrigerator. They share the space without speaking, like two people learning how to breathe near each other. Over time, words slip in. Nothing heavy. Nothing risky. She asks if he eats breakfast. He answers rarely. He asks if her father slept well. She says yes. Sometimes they talk about traffic, the weather, a building going up downtown. The conversations end naturally, without effort. It feels strange, this calm. Almost dangerous. One night, the silence presses harder than usual. Dylan has been home for hours, his jacket draped over a chair, his sleeves rolled up. Sheila watches him trace the rim of his glass with his finger. "Why do you hate me?" she asks. The question surprises them both. Dylan looks up slowly. "I don't." She waits. "I hate what you represent," he continues. She sets her mug down. "What's that?" He exhales through his nose, a short, humorless sound. "Proof that I'm still the monster everyone thinks I am." Her chest tightens. "You didn't force me." "I didn't have to," he says. "That's the point." The words settle between them. Sheila studies his face, the lines carved by stress rather than age. "You could have chosen someone else," she says. "Yes," he answers. "But you wouldn't have lasted. And you wouldn't have lied convincingly." She flinches. "I lie every day." "I know," he says. "And you hate it." Silence returns, heavier but honest. A week later, Dylan surprises her. Sheila is packing her bag for Evanston when he speaks from the doorway. "I can come with you." She turns, confused. "Why?" "Because your father keeps asking when he'll meet me," Dylan replies. "And because I should." The drive north is quiet. Snow lines the road. Gerald's facility rises clean and modern against the winter sky. Sheila's nerves twist as they walk inside together. Gerald's face lights up when he sees them. "So this is him," Gerald says, his voice stronger now. "The man who stole my daughter's heart." Sheila opens her mouth, but Dylan steps forward first. "I'm glad to finally meet you," Dylan says, offering his hand. His tone is respectful, steady. "You raised a remarkable woman." Gerald's eyes shine. He squeezes Dylan's hand with effort. "She saved me." "No," Dylan says quietly. "She fought for you." They sit together. Dylan listens as Gerald talks about therapy, about small victories. He asks questions. He thanks the staff by name. There is no show, no performance. Sheila watches, stunned. When they leave, Gerald calls after them. Take care of each other. Outside, Sheila stops walking. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, Dylan replies. You deserve the truth in front of him, not just lies behind his back. They drive south along Lakeshore Drive, the lake frozen and vast beside them. Sheila's emotions rise, sharp and tangled. Who are you? She asks suddenly. Really? Dylan does not answer right away. At the next turn, he pulls the car into a quiet lot near Grant Park. Snow covers the paths. The city feels hushed. Dylan steps out, pulling his coat tight. Sheila follows. They walk slowly, their breath visible in the cold air. I grew up on the south side, Dylan begins. My father died when I was 9. My mother worked until her body gave out. I ran errands to keep food on the table. He pauses, then continues. By 16, I was collecting debts. By 21, I was running my own operation. She listens, heart pounding. My brother Tommy tried to leave it all behind, Dylan says. Stress took him before the clean life ever did. Frankie wasn't so lucky. A warehouse job went wrong. He stops walking, staring ahead. This world gave me power when I had none. It also took everything that mattered. Sheila steps closer, her arm brushing his. Why stay? Because people depend on me, he answers. Because I can fund schools, clinics, programs no one knows my name is tied to. Because walking away would leave a mess someone worse would claim. He looks at her then, eyes unguarded. I brought you into this knowing exactly what I was doing. And I hate myself for it. Her breath catches. I don't despise you, she says softly. I despise what you did. But I'm starting to understand why. They stand there, snow crunching beneath their feet, the city waiting beyond the park. On the walk back to the car, neither speaks. But something inside both of them has cracked open, letting light through places that had stayed sealed for years. They do not rush back to the car. The snow under their shoes makes a soft sound with every step, steady and slow. Sheila keeps her hands tucked into her coat sleeves, her mind still caught on Dylan's words. He walks beside her, close enough that she can feel his body heat, far enough that neither reaches out. After a long stretch of silence, he speaks again. I wasn't always like this, he says. I was just a kid trying to keep the lights on. She looks at him, giving him space to continue. I grew up on the south side, Dylan says. My father died when I was 9. Heart gave out on a factory floor. One minute he was there, the next minute he wasn't. No warning. No goodbye. His jaw tightens, but his voice stays even. My mother worked 16-hour days after that. Cleaning offices, packing boxes, anything she could get. She came home exhausted every night, hands raw, eyes empty. I learned early that waiting for help was useless. He tells her how it started small. Running errands at 13. Carrying envelopes. Delivering packages he was told not to open. Men slipped him cash and called him smart. Useful. At 16, they trusted me with more, he says. Enforcement. I was big for my age. Angry too. People listened. By 21, he had his own crew. His own rules. He learned quickly who could be trusted and who could not. He learned how fear worked, how respect followed strength. I thought I was building something solid, he admits. I thought control meant safety. They stop near a frozen fountain. The city lights reflect faintly off the snow. My brother Tommy hated that life, Dylan continues. He was older than me. He wanted clean work, quiet days. He left the neighborhood, took an office job, married. Tried to pretend none of this ever touched him. Dylan's breath fogs in the cold. Stress killed him at 42. Heart attack at his desk. He worked himself into the ground trying to be normal. Sheila presses her lips together, feeling the weight of it. And Frankie, she asks softly. Dylan's shoulders stiffen. Frankie stayed. 7 years ago, a job near Midway went wrong. Warehouse shooting. Wrong place, wrong moment. He does not say more. He does not need to. For a long time, Dylan says, I told myself the world I built gave me power to protect the people I loved. Food on tables. Rent paid. Doctors covered. No one pushed us around. He looks down at his hands. Power feels like safety when you've grown up without either. Sheila watches his face, seeing the boy beneath the man, the grief under the control. I know what I am, he says quietly. I don't pretend otherwise. I'm a criminal with a conscience. It's a special kind of hell. The words settle between them, heavy and honest. She thinks of the businesses she's seen paperwork for. The construction firms. The logistics companies. The restaurants that employ hundreds. She thinks of the rehabilitation center in Evanston, the private care her father receives, the ease with which resources move when Dylan signs a form. I've started legitimate businesses, Dylan continues. Not as cover. As anchors. Real jobs. Real growth. I fund programs in neighborhoods like the one I came from. After-school centers. Scholarships. Medical funds. Sheila turns to him. Why anonymously? Because names attract attention, he says. And because praise doesn't change what I've done. They begin walking again, the car visible in the distance now. If you have all that, she asks, why not leave the rest behind? Dylan's answer comes without hesitation. Because people depend on me. Because walking away would leave a vacuum. And because there are families who eat, because I still stand where I stand. He glances at her. The world isn't clean lines and simple exits. Not for people like me. They reach the edge of the path. The wind cuts sharper here. Sheila stops again, forcing him to face her. You brought me into this, she says. Knowing exactly who you are. Yes, he replies. His voice drops. I brought you into this knowing exactly what I was doing. And I hate myself for it. The words land hard. There is no defense in his posture, no shield in his eyes. I used your loyalty, he continues. Your love for your father. I told myself it was fair because I offered protection in return. But fair doesn't mean right. Sheila feels a tight ache in her chest. You didn't lie to me. I didn't tell you the whole truth either. She steps closer, close enough to see the strain he keeps locked down. I don't despise you, she says. I despise what you did. But I'm starting to understand why. His breath catches, just slightly. Understanding doesn't excuse it, she adds. I know, he says. They stand there, the city humming beyond the park, the lake frozen and endless nearby. For the first time since signing the contract, Sheila does not feel like an object being moved from place to place. She feels seen. On the walk back to the car, they say nothing. The silence feels different now. Not empty. Not cold. It carries everything they have shared, every truth laid bare. When Dylan opens the door for her, their eyes meet for a brief moment longer than necessary. Neither of them smiles. But neither of them looks away. As the car pulls onto Lakeshore Drive, Sheila watches the lights stretch ahead and realizes something fundamental has changed. The walls between them are still standing, but there are cracks now. And through those cracks, something human is beginning to breathe. The weeks after that night feel different, like the air inside the penthouse has shifted. Breakfast becomes a habit without either of them naming it. Sheila wakes to the smell of coffee instead of silence. Dylan sits at the counter reading the news on his tablet, sleeves rolled up, hair still damp from the shower. At first, they eat quietly. Then conversation finds them. Not small talk. Real talk. Sheila tells him about the life she once planned. She wanted to teach literature. High school, maybe community college. She loved books that made people feel less alone. She talks about working 2 jobs, about giving up classes when money ran out, about promising herself she would go back someday. Dylan listens. He does not interrupt. He tells her things too. About reading philosophy late at night when sleep will not come. About authors who talk about choice, responsibility, and meaning. About donating money to literacy programs without his name attached, because words saved him when nothing else did. One night, she wakes to music. Soft. Careful. Familiar in a way she cannot place at first. She follows the sound to the living room and finds Dylan at the grand piano. The city lights glow behind him as his fingers move with control and restraint. The melody is slow and aching. Chopin. A nocturne. He stops when he sees her. I didn't mean to wake you, he says. You didn't, she replies. I just listened. He closes the piano lid, suddenly guarded. My mother insisted all her sons learn an instrument. Said it taught discipline. It's beautiful, Sheila says. He nods, as if accepting a fact rather than praise. A few days later, he tells her he is closing the aggressive lending operations. All of them. He says it plainly, like announcing a change in weather. Why, she asks, though she already knows. Because you were right, he says. About the ends not justifying the means. Because watching you give up everything for your father, never asking for more than you need, You have integrity I've never had. And it's making me want to be better. The words leave him exposed. Sheila sits beside him on the piano bench, close enough to feel his breath. I bought you, he says suddenly, voice rough. How do you not hate me for that? She meets his eyes. You gave my father dignity. You kept your word. You told me the truth even when it made you look worse. She reaches for his hand, letting him pull away if he wants. He doesn't. You did a terrible thing for complicated reasons, she continues. And you've been punishing yourself for it every day since. His hand trembles. He lifts it, hesitates near her face, afraid to touch her. She closes the distance instead. The kiss is soft. Careful. It carries months of tension, honesty, restraint. When they part, Dylan exhales like he's been holding his breath for years. This wasn't part of the contract, he says. This is choice, Sheila replies. Real choice. They admit they don't know how to want each other without fear. They agree to learn. No contracts. Just two people deciding what they want. Outside, Chicago moves on. Inside, something fragile and powerful takes its first breath. They are no longer pretending. And for the first time, love feels possible. Spring changes Chicago slowly, but when it arrives, it does not ask permission. The ice melts along the lake. Trees push out green buds. Construction cranes return to the skyline. Inside Dylan's world, change comes faster and with far more resistance. Lawyers begin filling the penthouse conference room almost daily. Accountants follow. Boxes of files appear, then disappear. Sheila watches from a distance as Dylan works through long lists, marking lines, closing accounts, selling holdings, restructuring others. Companies once tied to quiet violence are stripped down and rebuilt into something clean enough to survive daylight. Not everyone approves. Some men stop returning calls. Others show up angry, reminding him of old agreements, old loyalties. Dylan listens, unmoved. He pays what he owes, ends what he must, and draws lines he refuses to cross again. Each step forward costs him something. He comes home later now. His phone rings at all hours. Security increases without discussion. New faces appear outside the building. The ease that once lived in his shoulders tightens again, but the difference is this time he does not shut Sheila out. One night, he walks through the door with blood on his shirt. Sheila freezes. It is not much blood, but it is real. A thin line runs from a cut above his eyebrow, already starting to swell. He looks tired more than hurt. What happened? She asks, her voice shaking. A disagreement, he says calmly. She pulls him into the bathroom before he can say more. Her hands tremble as she cleans the cut, her breath coming too fast. She hates how familiar he seems with pain. She hates how easily he dismisses it. This is what you meant, she whispers. When you said leaving is dangerous. Yes, he answers. This is part of it. She presses a clean cloth to his skin, blinking back tears. I can't lose you. Dylan cups her face with care. You won't. I've survived worse. The words are meant to comfort, but they do not erase the fear. They live with it. He holds her longer that night. She feels it when he sleeps beside her, his arm wrapped around her as if he is grounding himself. Days stretch into weeks. Security remains tight. Dylan works longer hours. The weight returns to his eyes, but something else grows there too. Purpose. Resolve. In public, he reaches for Sheila's hand without thinking. In Millennium Park, he pulls her close as they watch tourists take photos by the metal curve of the sculpture. His thumb traces small circles on her palm, a quiet promise. He looks at her like she is the one place that feels steady. Gerald continues improving. By early summer, he moves into assisted living in Lincoln Park. His apartment is small but bright, with a balcony that catches the afternoon sun. He insists on making coffee when Sheila visits, his movements careful but proud. One afternoon, Dylan joins her. Gerald watches them with knowing eyes. When Dylan steps into the kitchen, Gerald leans toward Sheila. "You love him," he says simply. She does not deny it. Gerald nods, satisfied. "Love is always a work in progress," he says. "The important thing is whether you're both willing to do the work." Dylan hears this and says nothing, but later, when they walk back to the car, his hand finds hers. July arrives heavy and hot. One evening, Dylan comes home early. Too early. The tension rolls off him in waves. He sets his keys down with care, like he is trying not to break something fragile. Sheila feels it immediately. "What is it?" she asks. He exhales slowly. "I was offered a deal." Her heart drops. "What kind of deal?" "Full immunity," he says. "Witness protection. A clean break if I testify against former associates." The words hang in the air. "And the catch?" she asks, already knowing there is one. "The deal is only for me," Dylan says. "Anyone associated with me becomes a target." Sheila's chest tightens. "If I take this," he continues, voice low, "and you stay in my life, you become collateral damage." He looks at her like the thought is tearing him apart. For the first time since they chose each other, the future feels sharply uncertain. And the choice ahead threatens to take everything they've built and demand it as payment. Sheila does not speak right away. Dylan stands near the window, Chicago glowing behind him, his back rigid like he is bracing for impact. The words he just said still hang between them, heavy and sharp. Finally, she breaks the silence. "Shouldn't that be my choice?" He turns fast, anger and fear colliding in his expression. "No." The word comes out harsher than he intends. He runs a hand through his hair, pacing once, then again. "I can't ask you to live like that," he says, voice rising despite himself. "Always watching doors. Always wondering who's behind you. These people don't forget. They don't forgive. They don't stop." She steps closer. "Then don't take the deal." He lets out a short, broken laugh. "There is no other way." "There has to be," she insists. "We'll find one." Dylan shakes his head. "This is the only path that doesn't end with me in prison or dead." And it requires me to let you go. The words slice through her. No, she says firmly. It requires you to decide for yourself again. Like you've always done. He stops pacing. His shoulders sag, just slightly, like the fight is draining out of him. I fell in love with the man you're trying to become, Sheila says, her voice steady even as her heart races. The one who reads philosophy at the breakfast table. The one who plays Chopin when he thinks no one is listening. The one who gives money to literacy programs because he believes words matter. She swallows. Not the man the world decided you were at 21. Dylan looks at her like she's holding something fragile and dangerous. You spent your whole life making impossible choices in terrible circumstances, she continues. You sacrificed your happiness for your family, for your crew, for everyone who depended on you. When do you get to choose what you want? His jaw tightens. What I want doesn't matter if it gets you killed. Her voice does not rise, but it sharpens. When does Dylan Puckett get to be selfish? He flinches. When do you get to choose happiness? She presses. I'm choosing you. Witness protection, danger, uncertainty. All of it. Because the alternative is living without you. He turns away, gripping the edge of the counter like it's the only thing keeping him upright. You don't understand, he says hoarsely. I've buried people. I know, she says softly. And you're still standing. She steps in front of him, forcing him to look at her. Tell me you don't love me, she says. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away. I won't fight you. But if you love me, stop making decisions for me and start making them with me. The room goes quiet. Dylan stares at her, his restraint cracking under the weight of everything he's holding back. His breathing turns uneven. His control slips. He reaches for her, pulling her close, his mouth finding hers with desperate urgency. The kiss is intense, raw, months of fear and longing pouring into the connection. Sheila responds without hesitation, grounding him, holding him like he might fall apart if she lets go. When they finally part, Dylan rests his forehead against hers. I love you, he admits, voice breaking. God help me. I love you more than I've ever loved anything. And that terrifies me. She cups his face. You protect me by being honest. By making hard choices. By letting me stand beside you instead of shielding me from everything. She presses her hand to his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. We're stronger together. Dylan closes his eyes. The decision does not come easily. It costs him sleep, peace, certainty. But when morning comes, he knows what he will do. He does not take witness protection. Instead, he works with prosecutors while maintaining his identity. He gives testimony under strict conditions. He hands over records, names, structures. It is dangerous. It keeps him visible. It keeps Sheila beside him. Threats come. Security tightens further. Some nights are tense, heavy with unspoken worry. But every morning, Dylan wakes beside Sheila and remembers why he chose this path. Not because it is safe. Because it is honest. And because for the first time in his life, the choice is not about survival alone. It is about love. The months that follow test everything they have chosen. Dylan testifies. Not once, but many times. Long rooms. Hard questions. Faces that do not bother hiding their dislike. Threats arrive quietly, sometimes openly. Security tightens again. Routes change. Plans stay flexible. Still, he does not retreat. At the same time, he keeps dismantling what no longer fits the man he is becoming. Companies are sold or reshaped. New leadership is installed. Paper trails are cleaned and clarified. What remains is smaller, stronger, and legal enough to stand on its own. Sheila stands beside him through all of it. She also enrolls in night classes at DePaul University. Education theory. Classroom management. Literature surveys. She sits in lecture halls with students half her age, and feels alive in a way she hasn't felt in years. Dylan reads her papers late at night, offering quiet encouragement, never advice unless she asks. October arrives with rain that seems endless. On a grey Tuesday afternoon, they sit at the same desk where everything began. The contract lies between them, edges worn, ink faded from handling. Outside, water streaks down the windows of the penthouse. Dylan exhales slowly. Technically, you're free, he says. The terms are fulfilled. You owe me nothing. Sheila studies the pages for a long moment. Then she picks them up and tears them cleanly in half. Good, she says. Because what comes next isn't about obligation. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small box. Inside is a simple platinum band. No stones. No excess. Just intention. Dylan stares at it, stunned. I'm proposing, she says softly. No contracts. Just love. Just partnership. His voice is rough when he answers. I bought you a ring 3 months ago. She blinks. You did. It's in the safe, he admits. I kept losing the courage to give it to you. How could I ask you to marry me for real when our first marriage was a transaction? She smiles through tears. Because we're not those people anymore. We're two people who found each other in the worst circumstances and chose to build something beautiful anyway. He laughs quietly, overwhelmed. He takes the ring from her hand and slides it onto his finger. Then he opens the safe and brings out his own ring for her, hand steady this time. They exchange vows a second time in November. The Chicago Botanic Garden is quiet, touched by early frost. Leaves crunch underfoot. The ceremony is small. Honest. Gerald walks Sheila down the aisle, his steps slow but proud, a cane in his hand and joy in his eyes. They speak words they choose themselves. Promises about honesty. About growth. About choosing each other even when it is hard. 3 years later, a renovated warehouse opens in Englewood. Children fill classrooms. Adults sign up for job training. Shelves of books line the walls of a literacy program Sheila directs with fierce care. Dylan works the crowd with genuine warmth, his smile easy now, unguarded. Sheila is 6 months pregnant. Dylan's hand never strays far from her back. Gerald watches from a chair nearby, healthy enough now to stand without help most days. That evening, they stand on the rooftop as the sun sets over Chicago. Dylan rests his hands on Sheila's belly. Their daughter kicks, strong and sure. "Hope," Sheila says softly. Dylan nods. Hope Bennett Puckett. They have come far. From transaction to transformation. From hate to understanding. From survival to love that redeems instead of consumes. Their story proves this: love does not erase the past. It gives us courage to face it and choose better. As stars appear over the city, they stand together, ready to keep building the life they chose, one day, one choice, one act of love at a time. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Every time you watch, every time you listen, every time you allow these characters to touch your heart, you give life to this channel. Your support is the reason these stories continue to breathe. We're on a journey together, one built on love, heartbreak, healing, and resilience. And now, we're reaching for a new milestone: 10,000 subscribers. It's a big dream, but it's a dream we can reach together. If you've been enjoying these stories, if you've ever felt seen, moved, comforted, or inspired by them, please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. Your subscription isn't just a number, it's a message that these stories matter, that this little storytelling family is growing, and that we're building something beautiful here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying. And thank you for being part of this journey. Let's reach 10,000, side by side.